through countless pieces of research on how the human body and biological structure, at least as we know on Earth, interacts with different gravitational fields and different atmospheres, when we look at what would happen to us, say if we were from another planet, we would be destroyed at any fundamental level, which would lead most people to believe that if aliens were something, they would look vastly different than us humans, even from just bone structure to just general shape. So why is it that every time someone sees an alien, it's vaguely human shaped, 2 legs, 2 arms, head, everything, nothing outrageous? And over time I've come up with something. I think, or at least from my studies, that it's us. So far into the future, technology is so advanced, infinitely ahead of what we can imagine, that they don't even look human now. But they are. We haven't been able to fully test and see if they are, but they are what I believe people. And they have found relics, at least in their time, of what they used to be, which is us. And the farther and farther they've gone, they've found a way to come back, and they are just studying what they used to be, the ancient structures, the ancient people, the ancient biology, which would be the reason why they look at animals, they look at people, they look at the plants, they look at the structures and everything, because they're coming back to see what they used to be. And we have no way of knowing how far or when, or even if it is the same people in a different planet, but I'm firmly believing it's us.
Aliens and time travel are the 2 most popular science fiction genres. They hold a deep fascination in our collective mindset. What if there were, in fact, some truth behind them? For generations, mankind has been witnessing UFO and alien visitations, bizarre and often surreal events that are either dismissed or ridiculed. Orbs of light, flying saucers, otherworldly apparitions, and men in black. There is now an explanation for these and more. A unifying theory that explains all the so-called problems with UFOlogy. The aliens are not, in fact, aliens at all. They are humans from the future. Highly evolved, technologically advanced, and on a mission to save the future of the human race. Their skin has changed in color, their features evolved, and their reproductive systems decimated. They come to extract DNA, sperm and eggs from our time to save the people of theirs. This is the story of a species on the edge of extinction, coming back from the future.
Aliens are in fact our future selves revisiting us in time. Now, this at first may seem like an outlandish idea. Why would humanity ever visit humanity? Nonetheless, take time travel to visit those of our historical selves. Why would we want to do that? Think about it. Our future selves would benefit the most from sharing genetic information, from sharing technology, from sharing those points in time that are significant in human history for science with our former selves. Just imagine if the calculator was invented 1,500 years in front of its current time frame. How much that would push even future selves farther down the line of evolution and technology and the capabilities that we would have in those moments in the future.
Naval commander and son of a U.S. President, George W. Hoover, believed that aliens were not from outer space, but were in fact time travelers from the future. Scientists are currently using computer algorithms to detect the presence of time travelers using the internet. They even hold conventions where they invite time travelers from the future to attend. It is a fact that hundreds of thousands of people around the world have witnessed technology not yet known to mankind. They have come face to face with humanoid aliens. They've been abducted, tested upon, lost time, and implanted. It has been claimed that these contacts are with aliens. That alien races have traveled across the universe to our tiny blue planet in order to simply conduct experiments. There is another explanation, and one that explains almost everything in a much more satisfying and logical manner, that these are not aliens. These are in fact highly evolved human beings from our own future. Albert Einstein said, "People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." Prepare yourselves for an adventure into the future and back again.
But I consider that aliens, what we think of classically as aliens, is nothing more than our future selves visiting our present time, forcing down the line, encouraging, adapting in very small ways our food supply, those of us around us. They're influencing our genetics, one small portion at a time.
Stephen Hawking said, "Time travel used to be thought of just as science fiction, but Einstein's general theory of relativity allows for the possibility that we could warp space-time so much that you could go off in a rocket and return before you set out." For decades, mankind has been reporting unidentified flying objects and close encounters with alien beings. In fact, it's been ongoing for much longer than that. There are religious and folk stories from every corner of the globe that deal with visitors that are often humanoid and more often have advanced technology. These aliens are distinctly humanoid, with 2 arms, legs, and eyes. They seem to speak our language, they can breathe our atmosphere, and they have a fascination, specifically with the human race. Could it be that these are really humans from the future, seeking some kind of biological, genetic holy grail to save the future of mankind? Is this why they test upon us? Is this why they implant humans with highly advanced technology? Would aliens need only human samples? Would aliens ignore the billions of other species on our planet? Has mankind taken the planet to the edge and therefore the human race also? Have we caused a terrible epidemic?
I believe that they are, at least in some way, humans from a time so far ahead of ours, it's beyond our standard comprehension. But what we see in the sky at night and is picking up people and animals, abducting them and putting them back, those aren't UFOs. Those are flying time machines, in a way. Something so fantastical we can't even fully understand it. And we're not seeing explorers from another galaxy coming and looking at our planet, this lower level society. We're seeing these neo-archaeologists, neo-anthropologists studying them from so far back that they look at us as the aliens, such as we look at them like that. It's not something crazy. It's not something from far away. It's us.
Maybe going through the evidence will help us understand more. But first, if it is true that humans are traveling back in time when we have to overcome the problem that time travel is supposedly not possible, the surprising fact is that time travel is actually theoretically possible. Special and general relativity suggests that time travel is possible into the future and past if certain types of space-time or types of motion can be achieved. Theorizing time curves or lines which form closed loops in space-time allows objects or people to return to their origin in time. There are equations in general relativity that mathematically describe space-time in closed time curves. Nobody's sure if it is actually physically possible. Some scientists in the field believe that time travel into the future is possible, but not back from the future. This would have serious casualty issues, like coming back from the future and accidentally killing your granddad. You wouldn't exist, so therefore you couldn't come back to kill your granddad in the first place. Theoretical astrophysicist Richard J. Gott said, "If you see an antimatter version of yourself running towards you, think twice before embracing." However, there are some physicists who say that such temporal paradoxes can be avoided because we would actually be traveling backward from a different timeline to the one we would be creating in the future. We might have killed off ourselves in a different timeline, but not our own. It could actually be that our so-called alien time travelers are humans coming back from the future to change the timeline on purpose. Theoretical astrophysicist Brian Greene said, "The bottom line is that time travel is allowed by the laws of physics." To be able to travel backwards in time, there is one big snag. we would have to travel faster than the speed of light. This is not theoretically impossible as it once was believed. Cosmic strings and transversible wormholes are two theories currently showing that it is possible. The theory of general relativity describes the universe under a system of field equations that determine the distance function of spacetime. There exist exact solutions to these equations that include closed time-like curves, which are timelines that intersect themselves. A line at some point in the future could intersect with a line in the past, and people or objects could theoretically travel down these lines to the beginning point or end point. Such a solution requires the universe to have physical characteristics that it does not appear to have. But one thing we know about such ideas of physical observation is that we don't know half of the story yet. The biggest possibility we know of for time travel is the wormhole seen in so many TV shows and movies. But what are they? Wormholes are a hypothetical warped spacetime, which are permitted by the Einstein field equations of general relativity. That is, time and space cannot be separated, and so are connected as spacetime. Space and time can be warped, changed, slowed down, sped up, changed in shape, and more. Changing or warping spacetime creates a wormhole through the ordinary spacetime around them, and therefore whoever goes through a wormhole travels in spacetime, relatively different to all those around them. Got that? So how would a theoretical wormhole time machine work? One end of the wormhole is accelerated to some significant fraction of the speed of light, perhaps with some advanced propulsion system, and then brought back to the point of origin. This creates a loop in time that can be constructed in a very accurate way. Another way is to take one entrance of the wormhole and move it to within the gravitational field of an object that has higher gravity than the other entrance, and then return it to a position near the other entrance. For both of these methods, time dilation causes the end of the wormhole that has been moved to have aged less or become younger than the stationary end as seen by an external observer. However, time connects differently through the wormhole than outside it, so that synchronized clocks at either end of the wormhole will always remain synchronized as seen by an observer passing through the wormhole, no matter how the two ends move around. This means that an observer entering the younger end would exit the older end at a time when it was the same age as the younger end, effectively going back in time as seen by an observer from the outside. As science stands at this moment in time, there is a limitation of such a time machine, is that it's only possible to go as far back in time as the initial creation of the machine. According to the current theories on the nature of wormholes, construction of a traversable wormhole would require the existence of a substance with negative energy, often referred to as exotic matter. It is possible that at some point in the future, humanity will discover this exotic matter. In fact, scientists at CERN are currently preparing to capture dark matter. In fact, the scientists at Washington State University have managed to create matter with negative energy, which, because it has negative energy, actually flows backwards in time. However, it is also possible that actions on the quantum level could help to violate any laws stopping a wormhole being created. In short, we could create a quantum time machine. If we consider that artificial intelligence is advancing at an alarming rate, it is possible that the calculations required to create such a time machine could be done in the blink of an eye by a quantum-powered artificially intelligent machine. There are many more theories currently out there in the scientific community, and several are theoretically possible. The amazing thing is, scientists say the fact that we have not actually been contacted by a person from the future is a problem proving that time travel into the past is not possible. But they are neglecting to take into account the millions of UFO and alien sightings reported around the world. Nor are they taking into account the copious tales from religion and mythology of super beings with technologically advanced devices, beings popping in and out of tales that appear like humans but have special powers and knowledge. Take the Hindu myth of King Ravana Kekudmi, who travels to meet the creator, Brahma. Although this trip did not last long, when Kekudmi returned to Earth, 108 years had passed. Brahma said that time passed differently in different spheres of existence. In a similar fashion, Albert Einstein said that all times exist simultaneously. In the Quran, there is a tale of a small group who wished to escape persecution. God told them to go to a cave and sleep. They awoke 309 years later. They were no older. That is time travel. The Bible also has tales of time travelers. The prophet Jeremiah was sitting with some friends and a small boy called Abimelech. Jeremiah told him to go and collect some figs from a tree. As he was dutifully collecting the figs, the boy heard a rushing noise and became unconscious. He woke again and saw that it was evening. So he got up and ran back to the city, which was now occupied by strange soldiers. His friends and Jeremiah had gone. He asked where they had gone, and an old man told him that it was 62 years before. This again is time travel. A similar story happened in ancient Rome when 7 young men trying to escape persecution fell asleep in a cave. They awoke hundreds of years later. There are similar stories across the globe. In Japan, a man went to visit a dragon god under the water. He was gone for 3 days. And yet, just like Einstein's relativity, above the water, 300 years had passed. These and more are the humans from the future playing with time in the past. This absence of time travelers from the future is known to scientists as the Fermi paradox. The absence of time travelers does not prove they are not traveling. It just proves that we've not believed what we've seen. Carl Sagan once suggested the possibility that time travelers could be here but are disguising their existence or are not recognized as time travelers. We would suggest that we are seeing them, but we are calling them aliens and their time machines, spaceships. There are, in fact, time travelers with space-time ships.
Well, I would propose that these aliens, our future selves, would want to visit us to make improvements in our lives. Think about the abduction cases you've heard. Honestly, normally it's someone who imagined themselves being abducted, drawn up into a spacecraft, into laboratory conditions, however you choose to say the word, and aliens seem interested in our genitalia, our genetics, our breeding. Imagine if you could make a change to your great-great-great-great-grandfather that would allow you to be a foot taller, would allow you to have a higher IQ, would allow you to improve yourself and the life of the family sequentially down the line. Think about the abduction cases. They may seem terrifying in the moment, but over the course of history, these moments could, in fact, be our future selves wishing to benefit themselves through improved evolution.
Indeed, scientists have actually held events to entice time travelers. Time traveler conventions are set up specifically to let the future know that scientists are sat waiting for them. As yet, no time traveler has turned up, at least not as far as we know. So time travel into the future and to the past is theoretically possible. So let us now assume that alien visitation is in reality time travelers from the future.
We're not seeing explorers from another galaxy coming and looking at our planet, this lower level society. We're seeing these neo-archaeologists, neo-anthropologists studying them from so far back that they look at us as the aliens, such as we look at them like that. It's not something crazy. It's not something from far away. It's us.
If this is the case, these travelers are coming back in time to carry out some very bizarre work. They are collecting human DNA, tissue, sperm, eggs, and more. What does this in itself point to? Is it possible that the human race at some point in the future has some very serious genetic problems? This could be caused in numerous and highly possible ways. Environmental catastrophe can cause DNA to change. This is how evolution works. Great natural catastrophes of the past have been proven to have altered species. We are presently destroying the Earth at an alarming rate. The human race is growing at an exponential rate. We will very soon run out of land required to produce the required food for the human population. We will have destroyed the ecosystem across the planet, used up its natural resources, and polluted what remains. All of this and more will have a detrimental effect upon the human race, and nobody knows what evolutionary effect it will have upon us. What we do know is that there are very specific types of aliens that come back from the future. The most reported sighting is of the gray. These are gray-skinned humanoids, usually 3 to 4 feet tall, bald, with black almond eyes, nostrils without a nose, slits for mouths, no ears, and 3 to 4 fingers, including thumb. They also have no visible genitalia. Much like a seahorse, which can swap sex and the male lays the eggs. Nature is full of androgynous beings caused to be that way by evolution. Greys are therefore possibly from thousands of years in the future, humans that have shrunk in stature. In fact, humans are already shrinking. Our guts are now much smaller, as too are our brains. The gray skin also has a reason. Argyria, or argyrosis, is a condition caused by excessive exposure to chemical compounds of the element silver or to silver dust. The most dramatic symptom of argyria is that the skin turns purple or purple-gray. One thing we do know is that we're polluting the earth with chemicals and killing or changing many species as a result. We are one of those species. Paler or pale skin and grayish or blue skin are also a result of lack of oxygenated blood. Our blood carries oxygen around the body, and when it is disrupted, we see a discoloration. The disruption may be to the flow of blood itself, which produces paleness or a gray tint to skin tone. When we experience a lack of oxygen, our blood may still be flowing, but it changes color. This causes our skin to become blue or gray in color. More pollution means less oxygen. Over thousands of years, our skin begins to turn pale and gray. The grays are also hairless. And the fact is that humanity has been losing body hair over the course of our evolution. The latest theory is that as the Earth has heated up, so we've evolved with less hair. One thing our destruction of the planet is doing is this: it is heating up at an alarming rate. Many thousands of years into the future, mankind will have lost its hair completely. Indeed, similar conditions can also cause our skin to become scaly, and thus the sightings of scaly-skinned humanoid aliens can also now be explained. Over the years, our own stature has altered. Our Cro-Magnon protrusions have all but disappeared. Continuing this trend would mean in the future we would look more and more like the Greys of UFOlogy. We would be their missing link. In the future, pollution will be so bad that massive air filtration systems will be created. This will mean that we will become reliant upon this technology to breathe. No pollution up our nostrils means no need for a nose, and hence even that will slowly disappear from our face, and we will look even more like the Greys. Added into this, the issues of pollution upon the human gene pool, we find that replication, in the old-fashioned way, becomes less and less likely. Already sperm counts are dropping, and there are indications of androgynous attributes rising. Over time, evolution means that those things we do not use are no longer required, disappear. Therefore, the genitals will go because reproduction will, most likely, be done via some technical and chemical way in a lab. This, of course, explains why greys are never seen with genitals. None of this is as fanciful as it may sound. Our use of technology is already changing us. Environmental conditions, such as temperature, light, and more, cause change. Over millennia, these changes spread out into the gene pool. In fact, it may be that evolution will be given a helping hand by humans in the AI machine technology. People, in fact, may be genetically altered into the gray state. Smaller, androgynous, hairless, and gray humans are the results of things we're doing to the planet. We are changing our own evolution. We are becoming aliens. So, evolved humanoids from the distant future have harnessed a quantum wormhole time machine and are traveling back in time to harvest genetic material in order to save the future human race.
Well, why does every time someone see an alien, it looks, at least in some way, like us? It's got 2 legs, a torso, a head, and 2 arms. You're seeing little gray ones, reptilian ones, whichever is commonly seen in different areas of the United States, different areas across the world. And that brings me to believe that it isn't aliens. I believe that they are, at least in some way, humans from a time so far ahead of ours, it's beyond our standard comprehension.
The kind of ships these visitors use is fairly limited, as seen all over the world. Saucers, triangles, and cigar shapes are the main shapes. They are very often explained as having moved in ways that current technology does not allow. Well, it would allow if it were some kind of extremely futuristic quantum time machine. This explanation would also explain the amazing light shows people have reported. Orbs of light, changing color, flashing in and out of clouds and disappearing with no explanation. These ships suddenly appear and then disappear. All of this and more can be easily explained by time-traveling technology.
They know where we are at our given point in time. Therefore, they don't need to be beyond anything other than, you could say, these aircraft are giving us a hint at our own future. And it is with these reasons in mind that I consider that aliens, what we think of classically as aliens, is nothing more than our future selves visiting our present time, forcing down the line, encouraging, adapting in very small ways our food supply, those of us around us. They're influencing our genetics, one small portion at a time.
But why do our time travelers come back to the current period? They didn't go back to medieval Europe in such large numbers. There's evidence from almost any period in human history that somebody visited mankind. but not in such large numbers as today. Well, there is one explanation. The modern era is highly technological, and since the 1950s, mankind has had a fascination with aliens. What better cover to visit from the future in? Every sighting of a future traveler would now appear to actually be an alien or UFO. The timeline would be safe. But there are, in fact, some eyewitness accounts which now back up the theory that aliens are, in fact, time travelers. In 1980, United States Air Force personnel spotted something in Rendlesham Forest in England. A huge triangle ship. It has become one of the most famous sightings in history. Sergeant Peniston saw something and in 1994 underwent hypnosis to try and understand more about what he saw. He stated that the aliens were in fact time travelers from the future and not aliens at all. He even explained that the future is a very bad place. Polluted to such an extent that humanity will have problems even reproducing. The time travelers, he said, actually came back to collect genetic material such as sperm and eggs to keep the human race alive. In fact, there have been dozens of people recently who have claimed to have been taken into the future either by being abducted or through some secret government project. And all of them claim the future they have seen is not good. There is another bizarre sighting that occurs, and they have become so famous that Hollywood have made movies about them. The Men in Black. They are in fact very scary to those who have come in contact with them. They are said to be like humans, but not humans. Whatever it is they do is secret, and people are unsure whether they work for the present government. They dress in almost 1950s style clothes and drive cars that simply do not match the present age. Strangely, they have even asked several witnesses what the time was. Could they mean what century? Men in Black figure prominently in UFOlogy and UFO folklore. In the 1950s and 1960s, UFOologists adopted a conspiratorial mindset and began to fear they would be subject to organized intimidation in retaliation for discovering the truth of the UFOs. In 1947, Harold Dahl claimed to have been warned not to talk about his alleged UFO sighting on Maury Island by a man in a dark suit. Maybe these men in black are in fact some kind of time police sent to minimize the timeline damage the other travelers are causing, to keep the travelers as secret as possible. In the mid-1950s, the UFOologist Albert K. Bender claimed he was visited by men in dark suits who threatened and warned him not to continue investigating UFOs. Bender maintained that the men in black were secret government agents who had been given the task of suppressing evidence of UFOs. No government department existed with such characteristics, at least not one that was known. Maybe they did work for the government, but one from the future. One UFOologist who came into contact with them described them as demonic, with exotic facial features. They're said to not exist in our reality. All of this is describing quantum time travelers. Is it possible that over the many thousands of years history has become so damaged that a man dressed in a black suit with a 1950s style vehicle is seen as the perfect cover for the whole 20th century? It's a little like dressing in a medieval suit of armor to go back to the 12th century because we perceive that to be the right thing to wear. Sightings of these men in black have slowed down to almost insignificant numbers, as if the knowledge base of history has now been built up again in the future from their numerous visitations. Winston Churchill said, "History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it." There can only be one reason for these men in black to have been visiting us. They have to be timeline police, keeping the problems of casualty to a minimum. In the future, their quantum computer will be monitoring subtle shifts in the timeline and pinpointing the origins for the men in black to return to and adjust by covering up the so-called UFO sightings. They may appear scary, but their purpose may in fact be a noble one. Aliens, men in black, and grays are highly evolved humans from the future. They are able to travel via interdimensional means. They look like us and act like us. It is not space which separates us from the aliens. It is time. Over the years, our own stature has altered. Our Cro-Magnon protrusions have all but disappeared. Continuing this trend would mean in the future, we would look more and more like the Greys of UFOlogy. We would be their missing link. If there is any truth to abduction lore, however, it may be that our anatomically postmodern descendants eventually prove otherwise, requiring us to either redefine human or exclude them as such. There are many things we can learn from all of this. Firstly, that time travel into the past appears to be more than possible. That aliens are not traveling millions of light years across space to sexually abuse us, We have our future humans to thank for that. It explains all of the problems we have with UFO and alien sightings. The fact that aliens are humanoids who speak our language, the genetic harvesting, the method of travel, the strange lights and otherworldly close encounters, the half-waking, half-sleeping periods when we see these beings shimmering in and out of existence, the advanced super beings that visited our ancestors. The fact that we have seen these beings here on Earth and yet discovered no evidence of them in our exploration of space. The biggest lesson, however, is this: that we are causing the most horrendous future for mankind. In our perpetual pursuit of self-destruction, we are destroying the only planet we have to live upon. We are overcrowding it at an alarming rate. We're poisoning our own food, decimating species, polluting the oceans, destroying whole continents of ancient forests. Little wonder then that our descendants will come back from the future and test on us. Advanced technology, quantum computers, and even the stark reality of our own independent doom does not seem to make us a better species. The one thing that has made us the fittest of the species will also be our own downfall: our eagerness to survive.